Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this adventure are Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. A Wednesday with 7 games on the slate. I actually like this board quite a bit, not just from a betting standpoint, but I just think it's got some weirdness written all over it. Some interesting matchups that we'll get to. We'll start with our favorite dogs. Little tough here because there are some ugly ones on the slate. But Nick, you and I are both in agreement here. I'm going to save my thoughts on Jets and Leafs towards the end, till the end. But you like the Jets here as your favorite underdog. They're plus 115 at the time of recording on Tuesday afternoon for Wednesday night in Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. Plus 116 at the time of recording. I think all three of us are in agreement, and I think the public is going to be even more in agreement in not quite getting this Jets line. Even with Mark Scheifele questionable, Gabe Vilardi questionable, and Brossoit confirmed as the Jets goalie, and he's been excellent. I still can't get to this number. Like I think, and if anything, I'm probably someone who's been more reasonable than anyone else in trying to give, like maybe defend Toronto a little bit, and being like, this is a team in 12th in the league, and they haven't had their number one goalie all year. They've had some injuries. I still can't get to this. It doesn't make sense. Like the Jets are playing too well in terms of their defensive play. And I know Connor Hellebuck has helped cover up a lot, but they're so good at making games a coin flip. They're so structured. And then you look at the Toronto side of things, and everyone's been pointing out all the soft goals that get in their net. I think it's been a little less bad than some people would probably have you believe. But this number is just hard for me to get to. Toronto's also shown no home ice advantage at all this season, and I think maybe that's actually a bit of like a real thing. I just feel like it's not a great environment. It's so negative. There's so much pressure. It's not loud. I don't really buy that mattering. And you look at, obviously for Winnipeg, this isn't much of a road trip. So I can't get to it. It doesn't really make sense to me. I think plus 116 is too long. And I think anything better than even money, kind of pending the Scheifele Velarde word, is a good bet.
Yeah,
Oh
we we
boy.
we, we were kind of surprised too, right? Because we talked yesterday. Like I have a feeling that this is going to be the time to start buying or selling high on the Jets, and then this line dropped, and maybe we're wrong, Tim. This is a weird one.
That's what I'm saying. It's exactly where I was going with this is like I thought we were gonna be ready to sell on Winnipeg. And I like you leave off of my legal pad here before the lines drop in the afternoon, day before the game. I kind of write down my spots and teams on back-to-backs, whatnot. And I did not have Winnipeg written down because I thought no chance it would be, the books would spit out a line that you know, made me want to play on them because you said we're looking at everyone's talking about how great Winnipeg is, like a Stanley Cup legit contender. I think my problem with this line is it this way because the injuries are probably going to be like for the worst for Winnipeg. Like, they're not going to play Velarde and Scheifele like that because I just can't get to here. And especially Nick, the point with the home ice, such a good point. The home ice, even with getting baked in here, like it's a Super Bowl crowd there. That's like a good way to look at it. Like this is, and it's nothing against them. I feel bad that a lot of the real fans can't get there. Like it's just how it is, and we have to handicap it accordingly. I just don't get to this number. I mean, could it be Sammy too? Like I know he's been better, but still, like I don't know why you want to lay much with against a good Jets team with Samsonov or even Jones the way he's kind of run out of gas.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds almost like Velarde and Scheifele are more on the side of probable. And if they don't go, I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll take plus 115. The Leafs could lose this game 20 different ways. And again, I think I'm more pro Leafs than anyone else. I think
Yeah,
some of these breakdowns that are getting highlighted recently are things that like 25 teams do. And if you wanted to pick through their last 5 games, you could find a comparable goal. And it's just different in Toronto. And I still can't arrive at this. And yeah, I think the Jets, like we've said, they're going to come down to earth. They're winning a ton of close games. Even for a goaltender as incredible as Connor Hellebuck, and I know he's not playing in this game, it's still going to be hard for him to post that kind of results. So I do think they're going to come down closer to the pack and look like a Dallas Stars and that sort of thing. But yeah, this is a pretty wild number. I think this will be a really popular play on Wednesday and for good reason.
yep.
Uh,
Uh,
that's why I'm scared.
Yeah, it was a little scary.
And last thing I'll slide in here, Mike, is just you could tell me the Leafs outshoot them 36-20, and they might, and I'd probably still play this number.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. Even with Brossoit, the most underratedly handsome player in the league.
And this means that Toronto's power rated better than Winnipeg.
Yeah, with the injuries and the goaltending, yeah, it's
I
it's
just
weird.
still like don't really get there.
Yeah, it's weird. It is. Okay, so that's one. I like the Blues in a sell high spot on Vancouver. The Canucks, I don't think they were very good in Chicago, but they just didn't need to be and kind of just got in there and got out of there with the 2 points. St. Louis is plus 180 on the road. It's a bad spot for St. Louis back to back and uh, with some travel going from Calgary to Vancouver. And I do think that this number could tick up a bit on the Blues. I think that they are one team that I'm going to have in my pocket for the second half as a pesky underdog in these kind of spots. They're still live in the playoffs. Uh, it's a team that has the offensive upside to give a team like Vancouver issues. Binnington's going on Tuesday night, so that kind of makes me breathe a little easier just because I know, as Tim said on yesterday's pod, I just don't know ever what to expect out of Jordan, and I don't think anybody does. Um, and it's just going to come to the point where Vancouver's the prices are going to get too high. I think we're getting there now. So it's not my favorite, big underdog play of the season for sure. But I do think that the St. Louis team has a little bit more teeth to them than this number would suggest on Wednesday night. Nick, anything here on the Canucks and Blues?
no, I don't disagree at all. I think this number is closer to Blues for me, and I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw DeSmith. So I would keep that in mind if I was betting early. Not that that might probably move the number enough that the Canucks are like that you're going to get a better number or a worse number on the Canucks. But I agree. I think you look at what the Canucks have done recently, and it's kind of comparable to the Jets. And it goes back to the point we always say in the NHL, where I think like the overall game is more marginal than people think. Like if you look at what the Canucks are doing, if they had average goaltending, it probably suggests they should be winning like games at a lower percentage of the time than they have. And I think that's kind of been like you look at the Toronto performance. Credit to them for coming out like a house, like just ripping, but also they blew a 3-goal lead in a game where Toronto's goalies were not very good, and some of those goals from the outside were pretty ugly. Like it felt like here, I don't know if the word around like the States was a little different. Vancouver got so much credit for winning that game. Like everyone was like, hell yeah, they stuck it to the Leafs, like whatever. Everyone was waiting for this to happen. And they needed their goalie to make like 43 saves, and some of their goals were pretty chintzy. So I don't think it was that convincing. If I was on that team, I don't think I'd be overly pumped about it. And granted, it is only one game, but you said kind of the same comment about the Blackhawks game. The Coyotes game, I think, can be in that boat. The Sabres too. Like you look at their last 5, and it's just been really competitive hockey. And I think the Blues are more capable of doing that. So I'm almost thinking the more I look at this, the more I don't mind it. Maybe kind of seeing how the Blues look tonight too might kind of be a little interesting in my mind as well. So yeah, I think kind of Blues or pass.
I'll be honest. I'm just really scared to look dumb betting against Vancouver. Like I don't love how that sounds in my head. And sorry, I like to have fun. If this was like a 2-game slate and this was one of the games, maybe I'd play St. Louis. I know that's not a good reason, but I just don't want to go searching for it here. Nick, you said that, Toronto kind of caved in Vancouver there, especially in the second half of that game at the end. And Demko was great, but to me, that's just like a testament to a good regular season team for right now. And that like a lot of teams let up that lead, and that's why they're a middle team. Like they can do it a bunch of different ways every night. I feel like when we play these dogs, we start to map out like, okay, what are the reasons, what are the things they can exploit, this and that. Like Vancouver to me is like, okay, if they don't have their fastball, like their curveball is pretty good. Like their other things are good enough for obviously a limited St. Louis team on a back-to-back.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I'm not trying to say they're like, I just think they're more in the pack than kind of people think.
Yeah,
And
but
granted, they have amazing goaltending and better than average. Well, I mean, this season, way better than average finishing ability on display. But if you look at some of the guys down the lineup, I don't think they're going to shoot the way they have so far. And then defensively, they're a good but not like incredible team. Like their results have kind of shown at times. So I just, yeah, and I mean, we're talking about a plus 180 bet here, so
you're
it's
right.
one of those things. It's tough on these betting shows when you say stuff like that, right? Because then I think people like hear your take and you're talking about it in the frame of like you're arguing that St. Louis is going to win this game like 38% of the time or whatever. And then people like take your kind of quotes out of context. And it's like, it sounds like you're just ragging on a team like the Canucks are the best team in the league. I just think they're due to lose games at a slightly higher rate than they have.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were a bigger celebrity than you are, Nick, and I put you squarely in the C level category, there would be a
C's pretty.
tabloid headline that says, hockey handicapper Nick Martin says Blues better than Canucks.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think
Yeah.
C level's probably even a little generous here, but
I don't
take it.
know. I don't know.
I mean, it's a good point though. Like the out of context of it, like we're arguing over the one tiny like path here, and we're like Nick thinks it's a little more open, and I think it's just a little more close. Like that's like what it is out of like the million things that can happen in a game.
Oh, you could snip like 100 clips from this show in the last month where we sound like complete idiots. I think if you didn't give it much context.
Uh, okay, game that's closer to a coin flip than that one. Tim, you're underdog. You're not terribly convinced. That's how you told us before the show. Uh, but your Boston Bruins are hosting the Carolina Hurricanes. Bruins minus 135. The Hurricanes are plus 115 and a total of 6. The Bruins are just following like the same rhythm they always do. Every time they start to teeter, and I'm like, huh, maybe they're gonna, fall back and could maybe the Panthers or the Leafs or the Lightning or whoever could nip at their heels a bit here. Uh, they just rhyme off like 4 or 5 nondescript wins in a row. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh wow, Boston's won 8 out of 11, and they're like 8-1-2. This is happening again. Nonetheless, the Hurricanes, they're packing some punch lately too, and you're looking at Carolina here on the road.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a Boston guy, I'm known as kind of a hater because I'm a pessimistic type of fan. I always see more reasons they can lose than they can win. And so when I saw Carolina as a dog here, I'm like, okay, this might be a good match for the Bruins to, lose their first game in 5 straight. This great winning streak they've been on here. But then I looked up the projected starter, Spencer Martin for Carolina. Nick, any relation? Who the hell is this?
Yeah, no
Oh,
relation. They pick, he had done okay in Columbus. But yeah, like what you went on here, Tim, I think this could be a good spot to target Swayman or Allmark, whoever gets the start, depending on how low the shot total is, because it is Boston. So I'm hoping it'll still not be above 20.5 given their defensive play. But I think this could be a good one to target the old classic Carolina storyline, which we saw on Sunday, where they just have to keep pressing and pressing for offense. And versus Boston specifically, they might have more of a mindset of just throwing trashy shots at the net, every point shot, everything from the outside, just funnel it to the net. So that's kind of the one angle I had here. And I think that kind of goes into what you're saying, Tim, with like, that's like clearly the biggest difference, especially when we're talking about a team like Carolina, where I truly believe they're pretty good at defense. Like, I think maybe the Oilers are early on this year, the goaltending was pretty bad. You could probably pick out a few more plays where it was just a complete breakdown, right? I think Carolina is like as good defensively as their analytics suggest. Like this team, everyone knows under Rod, they pay attention to detail in their own zone. They're pretty sharp. And I just think that just could set up such a good narrative for them to just funnel shots on goal. But yeah, the gap and just it feels like this is one of those ones where Boston just finds a way to win, but you don't feel like convinced about it. But they also do it all the time. So you're just like, hey, you got to tip my cap, I guess.
Yeah, I mean the goaltending thing for sure. And Carolina has given them trouble, in this recent Bruins era. Also, I'll note the Bruins. They do when you look at their schedule here, like these last 5 games, they caught Colorado in a bad spot. they take care of business. They're catching Montreal in a bad spot. They take care of business. We should be, you know, I would, it would take me too long to actually do the real math on this, but the Bruins might be the best team in the league at capitalizing when the other team is in a bad spot. It feels like they never fall asleep when the other team is in a bad spot. And that's why they've, been so good in the regular season. It's like, I think I need to pay closer attention to that, because when teams are in a bad spot against them, like, good luck. A lot needs to go right for you to beat the Bruins in the regular season, that is.
Yeah, they also just win like every game.
They just win every game.
There's not that many spots that they're bad in. But I agree. I think, but they're also obviously just legit good. The other one I would throw out for what I feel like that, Tim, is the Rangers. I always feel like when
We
they come
hope.
off like a bad loss, yeah, hopefully that's how
Well,
it goes
it's
tonight.
because they get served up a million good schedule spots a year.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the big board, and then we'll get to best bets and get out of here till Thursday morning. We'll start with Coyotes and Panthers in Florida. Coyotes are plus 180. Panthers are minus 210. They just snapped their schneid with a win over the Predators. Matthew Tkachuk is on a heater. Total here is 6. Coyotes benefited from the goal of the season, I would say. They became the first team in NHL history to record a power play goal without recording a power play shot. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just you can go find it easily in a 5-2 win over Pittsburgh. I think this one is a sneaky sneaky overtime look, because I think we know what Arizona is going to give you. They are a little banged up, though. That's a little concerning. So that would be the only thing I would come close to considering here. Don't want to bet against our Coyotes. They're still in the thick of the playoff mix, and yeah, that's really it. Nick, anything on Panthers and Coyotes?
No, I didn't have much here either. I'm literally in the exact same place as you, where I was like, looked at it. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna pay minus 220 to fade our Coyotes, but I could almost get talked into it the way Florida's still going and the way the Coyotes are winning. That game the other night was exactly the kind of win when we were throwing out Tarigny all summer. That was the kind of win we were like, the Coyotes need these. They need games like that.
Yep.
And I don't know. It feels like their avenues to winning this one is it's going to be tough. Yeah, I thought the price looked right. If anything, maybe could see Florida being deserving of being a hair more favored than minus 220.
It's Lebo, if you undersold it, those are the type of plays the Coyotes make. Okay, they force teams into things like that. That is Yotes hockey. But they all, our bet, all our Yotes kind of love here. We're gonna really find out the next couple of weeks after the All-Star break and this little Florida to Carolina stretch, back-to-back Florida, Tampa on the road. It's not cutting time for our Yotes bets. We're really going to find out a lot about them. Florida, to me, despite the little schneid they were on, I was on them against Nashville on Monday night. They're just so. We keep saying it, even with the little lull. Like, I think they're the most Stanley Cup, fit roster. They can just beat you in so many different ways, and especially a kind of a limping Coyotes team here. I want no part of it, but I don't fade our Yotes.
Yeah,
Capitals. Oh, go on, Nick.
Oh, I was just going to throw out there, if our Yotes win 1 out of the 3 games out of the 3 and 4 nights in the Southeastern swing, I'll be pumped, which sounds horrible, but I'm like, hey, 1 win would be great. Just
Maybe
stay
3
alive,
points?
get to the break. Oh,
3
3
points?
points would be insanity.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about your Capitals. They're in a tough spot here. Back to back, going to Colorado after playing Minnesota on Tuesday night. We are recording before that one. The Caps right now are plus 200. The Avs minus 245. A total of 6 here. I think the Avs, not something I do very often, but if you wanted to square parlay something, the Avs I think make a pretty good leg here. It's a great spot. They seem to have kicked things into gear a bit, and against a Capitals team, like, just gonna have all sorts of issues scoring with Colorado. I think this matchup actually works out quite well for Colorado, even at this price. So I'll give out the second leg in a little bit, but I like Colorado as part one of a little square parlay here. Tim, anything for you on Caps and Avs?
Yeah, I went with the on open here. I think it was minus 210. Nick, you were on it too. I just went with the risk 1 unit, to win a half a unit essentially. I didn't mind that play. It's a little too high now. Leboff, I would endorse your parlay. Also, sometimes you can get a good number on regulation. I would endorse probably puck line as well if you really, really were last minute playing it. The Avs are on the classic Tim spot, first game back from a little roadie out east, but Capitals back to back, and that's tough for them. That's a tall task for the Caps here. Colorado, they're just head and shoulders above this Capitals team. I don't know what else to tell you. They're a deserving big favorite, and it probably should be even a little more.
Yeah, I think shop around depending on where you're at too. Like out of the places I have open right now, some of the puck lines are plus 120, while the money line's minus 245 at both. So that's kind of one thing to factor in too if you're considering which way to play. In general, those will have similar EV, and I think you could consider just like the Avs to win by 3 or 4 too, if you wanted to put like some sprinkles on that too. I don't think there's much of a case for the Caps here. They're just gonna look to hang around and not make mistakes and try to capitalize on the few chances that they will generate, but that's not much of a case. And if you're going to play in your end the whole time versus Colorado, that's typically a tough recipe to just get goaltending and not give up chances that are just full-blown breakdowns. So it's hard for me to see the path for the Caps hanging around in this one.
And I'll add one more thing. I do worry about at times how often Colorado's star players play. But even with the first game back from a roadie, they had a couple days off here, which I think is huge for them in terms of resting those guys. Right back to it.
Another big dog, actually the biggest dog on the slate. No surprise. It's Chicago. They are plus 240. Seattle's sitting right around minus 300 at home, and a rare 5.5 total here. So not much faith in either of these two offenses, and a lot of faith in Joey Decord lighting it up. I know Philip Grubauer, I think, has been activated, but I guess maybe this is not a terrible spot to give him if that's not been confirmed yet. But nothing for me here, Timbo. You might just go ahead and do it though.
I might. I mean, come on. The Kraken, do they deserve to be a near minus 300 favorite against anyone? Come on. I might for like a half unit, quarter unit, maybe like Hawks score first. I don't know. But like, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. You see Kraken and then see minus 298. It's like that. Those two things don't go together well.
Yeah, I do have one play I'll put out there this game because I think I have a better feel for what the prop price will be. I think McCann, targeting him to go over 2.5 shots, is going to be a good play. I was on this the game in New York, the game in Edmonton, and then was lucky I actually passed on it the last one. But I think with him as top line center in this spot, and for his shot and what he means on the team, I'm almost surprised looking at like some of his scoring average or shooting averages from this year. So I would play this to minus 110, which I think is like that's a big, like obviously the numbers are going to be worse versus Chicago, and that would be a big adjustment compared to what it has been. So I'm hoping that it could even be like plus 105, given that would still be lower than it's been. Granted, the last 3 teams they played were actually good teams, but I think that there's a lot of ways for that to work out right now. And now that he's getting more time on the top unit, which makeshift top unit, but I think that's just kind of a good angle to go into right now, him getting going and kind of carrying this team.
Nick, the argument just needs to be, how many times have you played this prop in the last 2 years? I love this.
A ton. I
this
know.
Is a great one.
And it's good because I feel like we didn't get bogged down into playing it somehow when he wasn't shooting that much this year. And then that first Rangers game, I looked at where he was in the lineup and I was like, what? This is still the number? And so I kind of feel the same way. I'm definitely going to have my eye on it tonight. I think it'll be a good look for this game.
Yeah, he's a volume shooter.
As he
All right.
should be.
Yeah, he's basically it right now. Let's wrap this up before we get to best bets with Sabres and Kings. Buffalo plus 160, Los Angeles minus 192. Total here 6.5. Sabres doing the Anaheim Los Angeles two step, so they're on the second night of a back to back. And the Kings they are circling the drain. 13 of 15, I believe they've lost. Pierre-Luc Dubois starting to feel some serious heat for the contract and the trade, and Gabe Vilardi being the best player in the world on the other end of it in Winnipeg. I like Los Angeles here, though. I think this is a great spot. You're catching a team on the back-to-back. I know it's Anaheim to LA, not the most arduous of journeys, but the Sabres aren't very good. David Riddick is snapped into Patrick Waugh form, and I mean in terms of his goaltending chops, it's not his all-world coaching chops. Uh, so I like the Kings as the second leg with that Colorado play, plus 114 at these money lines that we're giving out right now. Nick, Kings and Sabres, what do you got?
I like the Kings as well. I tried to really give them a fair viewing last night, and I do think the offense looked pretty stale versus San Jose. You know what part of the problem was, though, is that PLD looked absolutely horrific on the top line, and I gave out props on him for that game, and he lasted 2 periods before they took him right off. So, which was fair because he was horrific. I'm just thankful he got 3 shots, so I split the props I gave out. I had someone on Twitter comment, nice, great call on Dubois last night. I honestly don't know if he was being sarcastic or not, because one of the bets I gave out won and one of the bets I gave out lost, and it's possible that he was on the loser. Or so if you're out there, I hope you're on the winner. But he's horrible, and I'm starting to worry like the Kings are scuffling a little bit, but this is just such a good spot for them. Like what they are capable of is still so much more than what we've seen. And I do think maybe that the offense is more stale than some of the analytics are showing, and that maybe they're not going to entirely come out of it. But they also should just be ready to skate the Sabres out of the building in this spot, and they can still play so well defensively. Um, I think minus 192 is honestly not like they deserve to be a bigger favorite than that. Even as I try to reevaluate if maybe I've been like giving them too much credit, because I think they have been kind of the new Senators for me in the pod, in that there's been a lot of losses given out on the Kings lately.
Oh God. Yeah. Let's do it. Early best bet here for me. This is gonna be my best bet. The Kings basically you know, any which way. I like puck line if you want it. I like regulation. I went with the risk basically a full unit for about a half unit win. That nothing gets you right like playing Buffalo on a back-to-back, right? I mean, hopefully if this doesn't cure it, I don't know what will. Then we can really send this team into outer space. I haven't budged them much from, my power ranking. Because I still think that they have all the qualities to be really good, and we've seen their ceiling. And this is definitely for sure the floor. I also, Nick, pointed out when we went head to head, not to, bring it back up from a week or two ago, but the Kings were dealt some pretty tough spots in that, losing streak there, as well as some overtime shootout luck, 1 goal games. Like I actually don't think it was as bad as it looked. I think it was kind of what we see in things like baseball and hockey, and that, every game is, supposed to be a different thing. It's not a roulette wheel. Like they just happen to lose a lot in a row and get a lot of bad bounces in a row. And has the offense not looked great? Yeah, you're right. But I think they're better than this. They're going to get right. And I think this is a good spot for it.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And I think we've made those points. I was just trying to like, you know, give myself a fair viewing and try to consider if maybe there are some things offensively that are actually going to be problematic moving forward, because it has been a pretty dry spell
I mean, Nick,
in
I
terms
just
of their
hit them.
ability to finish.
I hit them just one less time than you. Realistically,
But
like,
you convert that into a win and start your vibe over picking them is a whole different thing. So I
exactly.
agree.
I think we talked about this when the Kings were on their heater, because people are like, "Oh, is this the best team in the league?" And we're like, at the time, yeah. But that doesn't correlate into, oh, you should bet this team right now to win the Stanley Cup. We kind of said, look, there's going to be a lull. And if you believe that this team is as good or close to as good as they were showing in that streak in late November, early December, then just wait for the lull and then get in. And this seems like it is the time. So take a look around, I guess, on Los Angeles stuff if you were interested back then, because I don't really think there's a reason why you should be completely off this team right now either. All right, best bets, Tim. You said Kings. I'm going with the Jets. We've talked about it. This line doesn't make much sense. I know that there are some lineup concerns for Winnipeg with Shifley and Velarde, but they're going into Toronto, and I've made this point a lot about Buffalo this season, and the Leafs I think are a rich man's version of it, which is they win a couple games. They beat Calgary and a Seattle team that was ravaged by the flu. They didn't even play that team out of the park. I mean, Samsonov was good, even though he faced only 16 shots and made some 10 bell saves late to keep that game from going overtime. And the good kind of vibes start flowing, and everyone's like, all right, like this Leafs team should start pointing in the right direction. And that's exactly the time you want to start going the other direction. And I'm a little perplexed by this number. I think Winnipeg is head and shoulders better than them. The goaltending matchup, as Nick said, like the Leafs could outshoot this team 40-25. And lose 5-2 pretty easily here. So even with Brossoit in and some injury concerns for the Jets, I like Winnipeg here. If people are overreacting to the loss in Boston, it makes no sense to me. So Jets are my best bet. Nick, take us home.
Yeah, I'm going to transition. I'm going to just quickly rethrow. I think McCann's my best bet on the board, just given that we've already kind of talked about the Kings money line. I think is a little boring as much as I believe in it. Same thing with Avs money line. So I like McCann over 2.5 shots to -110. I think that it's a great time to target riding him as the top line center. They're facing Chicago. They should get their chances, should be able to earn their power plays where he gets a lot of shots. So I think the number hasn't been moved enough for his updated role, and he was kind of trending lower than I would expect before that in terms of his shots on goal. So I think going with McCann over 2.5 is my favorite bet on the board.
All right. Sounds fun. Kings, Jets, McCann. All about those bets on Wednesday night. We'll be back to preview Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit about the schedule for the upcoming couple weeks here, because the NHL kind of goes dark around the All-Star game, but we'll give some bets maybe for whatever they're deciding to do with the skills competition. I still don't understand it. I don't really understand anything about the All-Star game at this point. It just has gotten so convoluted, but maybe we should everybody who complained about World versus, Team North America is probably kicking themselves. I would love to watch Team Solani take on Owen Nolan right now. But until then, best of luck with your bets for Wednesday. We'll see you again on Thursday.